The antidote.
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 Y estás escuchando The Antidote.
The antidote.
The antidote.
The antidote.
You're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
With Christian music that doesn't suck.
The Antidote is back with more Christian music that doesn't suck. Tonight's music is as new as it gets and comes from one of my longtime favorite bands, Theocracy. Had a number of listeners to The Antidote that have asked me, why haven't I had this band on? Tonight is your chance to find out why they're so insistent. You just heard the title track from Theocracy's just-released album, Ghost Ship. Theocracy isn't one of those bands that constantly churns out music. Ghost Ship is just their fourth release over the past 14 years, but it's always been worth the wait between albums. What makes Theocracy stand out is that they're consistently awesome music, they've got solid lyrics, and of course, Matt Smith's got an incredible voice. Well, I received a pre-release of Ghost Ship a few weeks ago and met with Matt for a great talk about Theocracy's music and what inspired the band to record their new album. Enjoy this first part of our talk with Matt and the song Ichthus from the band's original self-titled release. The Antidote is joined by Theocracy frontman Matt Smith. Really great to have you with us, Matt.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Could you share about the roots of Theocracy? I guess what I'd really like to hear is how the name came about.
Well, it's funny, I had been writing songs for so long because all I really ever wanted to do was be a songwriter and had this vision of it eventually turning into the band. But it took probably 4 or 5 years that I just kind of had this in my mind with no band name because I didn't want to settle and I could not think of a band name. And the word theocracy came to my attention by a pastor or something at church, I think, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting concept and a cool sounding word for a band name. And I was thinking about, the meaning of the word, and I thought, well, what if instead of, a government headed by God or whatever, we made this a personal thing, a life, trying to kind of live by God's principles and that kind of approach instead of anything political or whatever, and that's what I was thinking about, and then I wrote the song and thought it was a good name for the band.
Now, you had just mentioned about just being as a songwriter. You were thinking about just writing the songs but not performing them yourself.
Well, I didn't really know what was going to happen with them. I mean, songwriting has been my passion and my main interest, and everything else, related to this as far as performance and things like that, that's always been secondary. I mean, really the first reason I picked up a guitar was so I could write songs because I was writing lyrics already, and I guess at that point it was more poetry. And even in school I would make up fake albums and track listings and fake bands and things like that. So the creative part of it was always what was so appealing to me. And then eventually I liked the idea of kind of starting my own band.
Well, man, you talk about somebody who has talent. I mean, on the first Theocracy release, your self-titled, it was just you, Matt, doing all the instruments and vocals. Okay, great to be a multi-instrumentalist, but wasn't that a stretch for you to record that album?
It was, and it was funny because, people ask me that all the time, but it was strictly out of necessity. I mean, those songs were put down as demos. I'd finally written a batch of songs that I was really proud of. And so the other part of this that I've always been really into is the recording part of it in the studio. I love the sound of records and kind of the art and the mystery of making albums, So yeah, it was just wanting to get good quality. I guess I should say that in quotes, good quality, because, it was pretty amateur at the time, but the best I could do, versions of those songs, and then there was a guy I knew named Darren Blevins who had a small metal label in Virginia at the time called Metal Ages, and I sent him a couple of the demos just to see what he thought, and he wanted to release them as an album, basically. So that became the first album. It wasn't envisioned as being a solo project or anything like that. It was just I wanted to record versions of these songs, and growing up in the middle of nowhere and outside of Athens, Georgia, in the country, kind of in a farm area. I didn't know anyone else who played metal, let alone the kind of stuff that we did specifically. So it was like, well, I guess if I want to have these recorded, I better just figure out how to do it myself.
pushed us underground. For all who dare to speak the name, the Iron Fist comes down. Face the task, put to death, but discovered it's the price we pay. Lord bless my brothers with courage, I pray. Lines of face drawn in the sand, completed by another. Stranger, show me where you stand, and if you are my brother, one by me, one by you. But the flame is still alive. Hiding, but it will never die. Carved in the wall, see the dunes at the side. Through the ages, His glory will arise. Walked into the catacombs, night to praise the King of Kings. Hear a revolution and the power that He brings. Heaven's Son sent us one as believers in the blood of Christ. Even in death we have true life. Lines of faith carved in the wall, a sign of peace abided. Stare into the eyes of death, clothed in the grace provided. This will live on without centuries flood. The flame is still alive. Hiding, but it will never die. Carved in the wall, see the dunes at the side. Through the ages, His glory will arise.
Progressive power metal is so popular in Europe, but I really can't imagine that the state of Georgia gives you a big fan base. So how do you manage that?
It's funny because, I'm in Athens. I've lived in Athens my whole life, which is a college town and has the reputation as being a great music town. And it does have a great music scene, but it's very much kind of college rock. So as far as what we do, there's never been really any attention paid to us. But I don't know, it all kind of worked out. I don't really think about it that much or worry about it. Once we hooked up with Ulterium Records for Mirror of Souls, our second album, and they're based in Sweden, and so they kind of immediately concentrated on Europe as far as the touring stuff. So we've played over there, much more than we've played here, and so it's worked out okay. It's we're gonna pick up the local music magazines, and there'll be no mention of our new album coming out or anything like that, it could get a little frustrating. But I really don't worry about it. That stuff's all completely out of my control. So we have people around the world who care about what we do, and we're very fortunate and thankful to be in that position. So it doesn't really matter so much, where they are or how exactly that comes about. We're just happy that people listen.
Going to completely switch topics here.
Mm-hmm.
You made a statement a number of years ago, Matt, where you said, I think the most creative, inspiring, and groundbreaking people in the world should be believers, meaning Christians. And as a whole, we're seriously dropping the ball on that front. Where are the problems, and what does it take to actually improve the music scene?
Wow, that's a good question. For me, that was really one of the reasons that I wanted to start Theocracy. And anything I say on this topic, I don't want to come across as we're doing something that's lacking or filling a void or anything like that, because that stuff's not for me to say. I can only speak to my experience. I just know that, as a kid and a Christian, I was looking for bands that kind of had the quality that a lot of the secular bands that I loved had. I was looking for a Christian band that was intelligent, like, Queensryche or bands like that I loved. And again, I don't want to say that they weren't out there. They very well may have been and probably were. I probably just wasn't looking in the right place. All the heavier Christian music that I came across in that period seemed to fall in one or two camps. It was either much more kind of death metal angled, really growly, screamy stuff, which wasn't, exactly what I was looking for, or it was kind of second-rate rip-off attempts of whatever was on the radio. Like really blatant stuff, like you listen to 5 seconds of something and you say, oh, this is trying to be, quote-unquote, the Christian Corn or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, it just immediately seemed second-rate to me, and I didn't like that. And I was like, well, what if I just try to write the songs that I would want to listen to and write from the heart and approaching song topics from a unique angle or something that I at least hadn't seen done before. I made a statement early on, which I've had to live up to for the rest of my career, about how I promised to never put out an inferior or a second-rate track on an album. That's really important to me, to put everything we possibly can into these albums, and sure, that makes it take so much longer, and we don't have a lot of material out there, partially because of that, but people can tell, when you're sincere and when you put as much effort into things as we try to, because it's a cliche, but you really can't worry about what other people think. I'm so thankful every day that there are people who appreciate what we do and who love the albums, but it would be very tough for me to have something that I know is not quite up to Theocracy standard or doesn't quite live up to what it should, quality-wise. So that's hugely important to me.
Found
Okay, you were talking about the quality of the recordings and the length of time that takes. That's where your albums are so far spread apart. I mean, I guess it's averaging, 4 or 5 years between them. Has that ever made you concerned about losing your fan base? Or are they just more patient than I am?
So far, they seem to be pretty patient. We're very lucky in that regard. There are a number of factors. I mean, part of it is what I mentioned earlier about quality and it just taking time. And then there's the real world factors that play into it, jobs, travel, life situations. We're all fairly close to each other. We're probably within 2 hours of each other, but everyone has different day jobs. I mean, even trying to get everyone in the same room for a rehearsal almost takes an act of Congress. I always say that's the hardest part of being in a band to me. So that slows things down significantly as well, So there's a lot that plays into it, but it is frustrating, and I know people get frustrated, and I definitely understand that. But I would rather have fewer releases that are all of a certain level of quality than kind of saturate. Like I've seen a lot of bands that just seem to creatively burn out. That's a huge fear of mine. I think about it all the time. I really do think that creativity is a limited well. I think there are only so many times you can go to that well without either blatantly repeating yourself or kind of losing the spark. I like I said, I would rather have fewer releases and try to stave that off from happening than kind of burn myself out creatively too quickly.
I'm really interested to hear about why it's important for you to create music that's focused on Christ.
Well, there are a couple reasons, I guess. One is just what's important to me, so just trying to be honest. I've always tried to come at it from a place of honesty and of asking questions and of never trying to come off like I have all the answers or understand everything. I think, human struggle is very important for art that people can relate to. The things I'm going through or things that my friends go through or questions that I have or topics that are on my mind. As a Christian, it's always going to be from that perspective in my mind. But, I try to, just be honest about these things. I think people latch onto that and they see it and they appreciate it. Secondly, I guess if there's a bigger picture thing, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I hesitate to say things like this because I don't like to say the world needs us or something like that. I would never think that, but I do think that, enough people have come up to us with amazing stories about, deciding not to commit suicide because of this song or this song, helping to save their marriage somehow, and all these things that you hear that blow your mind and make you kind of realize there's a lot more than you, at work here, because I could never do stuff like that myself. So in that sense, what we do can be important. I mean, we look at it as, sure, it's entertainment, but it's also an encouragement to people. And if our music can be used to help people in that way, then even taking, quote unquote religion or whatever out of it, I would much rather, live my life with that kind of a purpose. This is Matt Smith from Theocracy, and you are listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
Pictures and signs in these modern times. Instead of be seen if you read between the lines.
all songs tell stories, especially the songs from Theocracy's Matt Smith. But he wasn't talking about himself on the song title from our last track, the master storyteller from As the World Bleeds album. I guess it's time to go head back to our talk with Matt and hear about their new album, Ghost Ship. We were talking about the wait between albums. I guess we don't have to really wait much more because the new Theocracy album, Ghost Ship, released October 28th. What was it like pulling everybody back into the studio for this recording?
It was funny because, despite having been 5 years since the last new album and 2 years, 3 years since the re-release of the debut, it's taken so long, but at the end it was also rushed, because the label said, look, if we're going to have an album out, and do this tour, it needs to be done by this date and so forth. And so then it was like, well, we've got to get cracking. These are the 10 songs that I've got, so we got to hit the ground running. So it was kind of rushed, but it was good. I guess the one kind of bummer about this album is that, As the World Bleeds, we had much more time together, to get in a room together and work out arrangements and work on some of the writing and things like this. So I kind of assumed that the next album would, continue in that vein. And actually, Ghost Ship was much more almost like a solo thing again in terms of, the writing and the time spent. It was almost exclusively me just because of the scheduling thing I mentioned earlier. It happened so quickly. And, really the only time that we could get together was to work out arrangements a little bit, finish writing a couple of songs and then for everyone to record, his parts. So, it would have been nice to have a little more collaborative time on this one, but it just didn't work out that way because of scheduling. But it was fine. It's always just a completely draining, exhausting process on every possible level, many, many months and years with almost no sleep and mentally exhausting and everything you can imagine. But I still find myself putting the album on. I enjoy listening to it myself. So that's a good sign, I think. That's all I could really hope for in this kind of situation, I guess.
Well, you're almost making it sound like Ghost Ship doesn't meet Matt Smith's high standards.
Oh, no. I'm thrilled with it. I really am. It's just so exhausting to get to the point where it meets those standards. But we got there, and I still enjoy listening to it so much. I think that's a good sign because obviously I'm our harshest critic, so it's standing the test of time with me. I think I don't know what it is about this record. I've gone on record many times as saying, I'll never say that this is our best album or one of those typical musician cliches that you hear all the time.
All the time.
All the time, yeah. I'll never do that. I never have, and I never will. But I do think this, stands right there with the others. And the one thing about this album that I love too is I find myself kind of, when it's over, I want to play it again, and I think that's down to the songs, and it's also partially down to the length. The album I think it's between 50 and 55 minutes, which I think is the perfect length for an album. I've always thought that, and all 4 of them, I've tried to go that length, and I always end up going about 10 minutes over. And this time we finally got it right in that perfect sweet spot. Some albums, you finish playing them, and it's almost an exhausting experience, and you're so drained. With Ghost Ship, I find myself kind of wanting to start it again. So yeah, I'm very proud of it and happy with it.
Concrete and cold.
Theocracy often has these monstrously long songs. Many are in the 10-minute plus range. You even have one that's over 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you really find that long songs tell a better story than a short one?
It depends on the song. I mean, it sounds kind of silly to say, but I really do feel like the song kind of dictates, what it wants to do, where it wants to go as far as length and things like that. And it depends on the approach and the story you're telling. I mean, you mentioned Mirror of Souls, being almost 23 minutes. I remember when I started working on that, I thought it was going to be 8 or 10 minutes. And then it kind of kept going. And as the story kind of developed and needed to go here and there and be wrapped up, it just ended up taking that amount of time. So, so in Ghost Ship, another cool thing about it to me is that we didn't go quite as far in that long song direction. We have one that's almost 10 minutes, but aside from that, they're pretty, for us at least, fairly reasonable length, which is nice, because after a certain period of time, when you've got so many long songs, when you start thinking about live shows and whatever, I mean, there's only so many of those that you can play. So it's nice to have some more reasonable length material as well.
True enough. I mean, at some shows, that 22 and a half minutes is your complete set.
It's true, yeah.
Listen to the tale I tell, a haunting dream I know so well. When walking home alone one night, my path revealed by candlelight. Ahead I see an open door, with no idea what's in store. I glance inside the door to see a hall of mirrors beckon me. I take a breath and step inside, a tale of love and shattered pride. The door slams shut, I start to run, and it seems my journey has begun.
I'm a mean guy. That was a total tease. Just a 2-minute trip into the 22 and a half minute song, Mirror of Souls. And for you to get the rest of it, you got to go out now and buy the album. Something that I've been finding out listening to Ghost Ship from Theocracy, it almost seems like the hard songs are harder on it and the softer tracks are softer. I mean, I'm thinking of songs like Wishing Well that has your guitarist Val, bring out this awesome solo on the track.
Yep.
So was that something Theocracy was aiming for, or am I just losing my mind and reading the album all wrong?
No, I think what you say is accurate, but it wasn't anything intentional at all. It's funny because I would say Ghost Ship is the album that probably had the least kind of preconceived plan, just because of the time. When I started writing, I was thinking about doing this kind of concept idea that ended up not quite working out. And so, I was writing these other songs at the same time that I didn't know, what they were going to be yet. And then, suddenly we were up against the deadline. So it was like, well, here are the 10 songs that we have, and these work well together. And so, I think this makes a great album. And that's what ended up being Ghost Ship. It was probably had the least amount of planning ahead of time of any of them, because I never knew exactly what it was going to be. So I don't think that what you said is not accurate. I mean, I think that's correct, but it wasn't anything intentional. That's just kind of how it came out, I guess.
Because I think I see a bit of that coming through on Ghost Ship, where you've included a seriously great ballad, Around the World and Back. Do you think this is actually almost opening up another side of the band?
I don't know about that. I was a little nervous. I loved the song, but I didn't know if the guys would think it was too soft or something. But they actually loved it, and particularly John. I mean, he was attached to it right away and asked if he could play the solo for that one, and so that's how he ended up doing that. So, yeah, other people that I let hear the demos and things, as I was working on the material, really seemed to gravitate towards that song as well, and said they felt it was special somehow. So I knew it was solid, and I was proud of it, and I was happy that the other guys, liked it as well and wanted to record it. So as simple as that.
Hey, weary traveler, have you finally lost your way? You dream of turning back the clock to yesterday. What seemed so simple then has now faded away, and you'd often wonder why the truth surrendered as the years went by. You grabbed the simple gift and held it as a child, but faith became encumbered, chained after a while. And then your journey just got harder every mile. But it's an endless game, you see. Forget the rest and just come back to me. Reaching out, reaching in, faith to west, to down and back again. You've been around the world and back. Love and loss, vanity, just believe and leave the rest to me. You'll see, around the world and back. Grace has
Around the World and Back from Ghost Ship, the new album from Theocracy. If you've never been a progressive metal fan, and I'm specifically talking to you, Nick, that's the music that will convert you. I know that, many of the artists that you find on The Antidote have a fairly mild Christian viewpoint of their message. But Matt Smith and Theocracy certainly bring it to a higher level on their releases. As I usually do, The Antidote heads in a different music direction next week. The Chairman Dances stretches the boundaries of indie rock and pop, and their lyrics draw from all forms of literature. Their new album, Time Without Measure, brings biographical vignettes of Christians who were social radicals and activists. Believe me, it's going to be a really interesting show. For The Antidote, here we go. Matt from Theocracy comes back to talk about the message of Ghost Ship. And the last song of the night from the album is Castaway. And we'll see you again next week. What kind of message does Theocracy want to get across on Ghost Ship?
Well, I think As the World Bleeds was often kind of harsh in its message, which I stand by, and I think it was a kind of a needed message that was kind of in the back of my mind, and I wanted to do something maybe a little more encouraging, a little more positive this time out, and so consciously or subconsciously, I think this album is quite uplifting, for the most part, and has that thread running through it, and it's not conceptual, there are themes that kind of tend to reoccur here and there. I mean. The title track, for example, Ghost Ship, was really inspired by people I talked to on the road, conversations that we were having with people after shows. We met so many kids, you could tell they were looking for a place to fit in, and our music means so much to them, and they felt like misfits, and I could totally relate to that because I was never the cool kid at all. I was always a little bit of an outcast, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about throughout history how a lot of times it's the non-cool kids, so to speak, or the outcasts or the misfits or the unusual people who have ended up making a big difference. From a Christian perspective, that stuff is all through history. If you don't have to look any further than the disciples of Jesus, for example. That was an example I've given before, but fishermen and tax collectors and the most normal, quote unquote, unremarkable people of that time, and they ended up shaking the world, and being used in such powerful ways. And so, some people call the kids of this generation the justice generation because they're so desperately looking for a way to make a difference. And so all these things were rattling around in my head, and that's eventually where the idea for Ghost Ship came from. It's like, well, there is a place that all of the kind of dead to the world, misfits fit in and can be used in a powerful way. And so I wanted to write something that was almost kind of an anthem, and that's how the title track came about. And really that's specific to that song, but it's not too far off that thread that pops up, here and there on the album in other spots as well. Castaway, that's a song that's kind of related as well, and that one's more about doing the right thing regardless of consequences, and even when you lose, so-called friends, for standing for what you believe in. And, Currency in a Bankrupt World, which is basically an anti-suicide song, so there's a lot of, positivity is not a theme, but it did keep recurring, this kind of theme of encouragement and building people up. So if there's any recurring thread on the album, I would say it's that.
And what about that misfit label? Does that still fit into Matt Smith's world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As much as ever. I've just kind of in my own little world doing my thing, and fortunately some other people have come along for the ride, so I'm thankful for that.
Well, Matt, thanks for taking time out to spend with The Antidote. I really appreciate your time, and best of luck with Ghost Ship.
Thank you, Dave, for your kind words about the album. I'm glad you like it so much, and thank you for having me on. And all you listeners out there, hope you like the album as well, and thank you for listening.